The skies over Earth darkened as the alien ships descended, their immense forms blotting out the sun. Towering metal structures, unlike anything humanity had ever seen, hovered over major cities. They were massive, impossibly large, each one capable of obliterating entire nations in a single strike. As they touched down, their engines hummed with a low, unnerving growl, sending shockwaves through the ground. People stared up in stunned silence, unsure of what to make of the spectacle. The world held its breath. Global leaders scrambled to respond, but there was little time to act. The ship's arrival was swift and without warning. Governments issued emergency broadcasts, urging calm, but no one knew how to prepare for something so incomprehensible. Cities stood still, caught in the tension of the unknown. A voice echoed over every communication channel, broadcasted to every corner of the world. It was deep, resonant, with an edge of cold amusement. "We are the Zal 4, the voice boomed. "We are your conquerors." The words hung in the air like a weight, and for a moment, there was nothing but the sound of people gasping in disbelief. The voice continued, unfazed by the shock it had caused. "Your species is a primitive one, still struggling to grasp the most basic principles of science. Your technology is laughable, your wars meaningless. We have watched you for millennia. And now, it is time for you to serve a greater purpose, one under the reign of the Zal 4. Across the globe, people's hearts sank. The first wave of communication had arrived, and with it, the full weight of their arrogance. The Zal 4 didn't come with diplomacy or any offer of peace. They came with the declaration that humanity was insignificant, a race too immature to stand on its own in the galactic hierarchy. The ships began to deploy mechanical drones that descended from the sky, scanning cities, taking inventory of resources. It was clear that they were evaluating the planet for exploitation. For all their technological might, the Zal 4 treated the people of Earth like ants to be crushed, not worth even the courtesy of a simple greeting. In the halls of the United Nations, the representatives were in chaos. The heads of state called for immediate military action, but it was obvious that any conventional response would be futile. Earth's military forces were no match for the advanced technology now hovering over their heads. From the crowded streets of New York to the rural villages in Africa, people were watching the same broadcast. Fear gripped the hearts of many, but as the Zal 4 spoke their final words, a strange feeling began to settle in. This was not a typical invasion. This was something different, something personal. The aliens had underestimated humanity's ability to unite in the face of adversity. Though their words were filled with contempt, the human spirit was more resilient than the Zal 4 could ever imagine. As the broadcast ended, one thing was clear: Earth would not be bending the knee. Not today. In the quiet of homes, in underground bunkers, and in the hearts of everyday people, a spark of defiance was igniting. The war for Earth had only just begun. The world had barely recovered from the shock of the Zal 4's arrival when the mocking began. It wasn't enough for the aliens to simply land and announce their superiority. They wanted to make sure everyone understood just how laughable humanity was in their eyes. Across every global communication network, the Zal 4 began broadcasting their message, a barrage of arrogance and ridicule directed at Earth. The face of the alien representative, an imposing figure with a gleaming, featureless helmet, appeared on every screen, in every home. It was a form of communication that seemed almost designed to unsettle, as though the alien didn't care to address humanity on a personal level. The broadcast began with a low, mechanical voice that rattled every speaker across the planet. "You think you are special. You think you are unique," it began, the words dripping with disdain. "Your greatest achievements are but accidents in the grand scheme of the cosmos. Your greatest minds are only toys, playing with crude ideas. Your greatest victories, small skirmishes between tribes, petty conflicts over land and resources, mean nothing in the vastness of the galaxy. You have no place among the stars." There was a dead silence, like the whole world held its breath. The Zalfor continued, unfazed by the reactions of those who watched in horror, disbelief, and fury. "We have witnessed your history," the alien voice mocked. "Your species' wars, your futile attempts at peace. You have waged destruction upon yourselves for eons, yet you have the audacity to call yourselves advanced. You are children, fumbling in the dark, only now learning to walk when we have already mastered the stars." The image of the alien representative dissolved into a holographic display, showing Earth's technological achievements. The towering buildings, the great space telescopes, the technology that had been humanity's pride for centuries. The alien laughed. "These toys," it sneered. "This is all you have to show for your so-called evolution. You call this progress. You are far from ready for the galactic stage. You do not even know how to work together as a species. Your divisions, your greed, your wars, it is all so trivial." The mockery continued, but it didn't end with words. The aliens broadcast images of past conflicts, soldiers in trenches, cities reduced to rubble from human wars, and footage of every disaster humanity had suffered, turning each tragedy into a cruel joke. They paraded humanity's failures as though they were nothing but amusing quirks of a lesser species. And then came the final insult. A hologram of Earth itself, spinning slowly in space, was projected onto the sky. The alien voice returned, smooth and cold. "We've seen all there is to see. Earth will be ours, and your pathetic attempts at resistance will be wiped away. You will serve us, or you will perish. It is your choice." With that, the broadcast ended. Across the globe, people seethed with anger. The message was clear. Humanity wasn't just an inconvenience to the Zalfor. It was a joke. The invaders saw humans as little more than pests to be eradicated. Yet, something remarkable began to happen in the wake of the humiliation. Instead of breaking under the pressure, the people of Earth united. No longer were they divided by borders, politics, or petty differences. A singular thought rose among them: defiance. In every corner of the world, whispers began. People were no longer cowed by the ridicule. Something ignited within them, something ancient, something primal. The aliens thought they were invincible. They thought humanity would cower before them. But they were wrong. As the Zalfor's mocking broadcast faded into history, Earth's response was not one of submission, but of quiet reflection. The world, initially paralyzed by fear and confusion, began to regroup. There was a collective realization that something had changed. A spark had been lit within humanity. The laughter of the invaders echoed through every corner of the globe, but it also left behind a question that lingered in the air. What if the aliens were wrong about us? It wasn't long before a small group of individuals, scientists, engineers, and former military personnel, began to notice something peculiar. The seemingly random glitches in communication systems, the strange energy pulses detected beneath the Earth's surface, the inexplicable interference with alien technology. It wasn't just a fluke. It was a signal. At first, no one could explain it. In labs across the world, researchers studied these odd anomalies, assuming they were side effects of the alien ship's arrival. But as the days passed, they realized that the disturbances were much more than that. They were deliberate, not random. In a high-tech research facility in Switzerland, Dr. Eliza Carter, a leading physicist, stared at a screen showing data from a seismic anomaly detected beneath the Earth's crust. It wasn't just a fluctuation in the planet's magnetic field. It was a frequency, a pattern repeating itself, resonating with an odd sort of precision. She wasn't the only one to notice. Around the world, others began to connect the dots. Something hidden deep within Earth's core seemed to be responding to the Zalfor's presence. Meanwhile, in underground bunkers and makeshift war rooms, military strategists worked tirelessly to prepare Earth's defense, their resources still nowhere near a match for the aliens. But even as they strategized, they noticed something else. The more the aliens tried to disrupt human communications, the more determined the people seemed to become. It was as if humanity was somehow adapting to the alien technology, learning to overcome every obstacle. Something unexplainable was happening. Then came the breakthrough. A group of engineers working with the remnants of a destroyed alien drone stumbled upon something remarkable. After months of trying to reverse engineer the alien tech, they discovered that it wasn't the Zal-4's technology that was truly unique. It was their limitations. The invaders, it seemed, had relied too heavily on their advanced systems, too focused on brute force, to consider the potential of human creativity and adaptability. Unlike the Zal-4, humanity could think outside the box. As the engineers studied the data, they realized something profound. The aliens had underestimated the one thing that made humanity different: its ability to improvise. Humans might not have the same raw power as the Zal-4, but they had a deep primal strength, the ability to innovate, to change, and to adapt in ways no invader could predict. The most surprising discovery came from an ancient text found in a long-forgotten library, a manuscript that described a theory that had been dismissed by scholars for centuries. It spoke of an untapped potential in the human mind, something buried deep within the collective consciousness, a power that could only be accessed when humanity united as one. The manuscript referred to this power as the singularity of will, a force that existed not in physical strength, but in the collective drive and creativity of the human race. It was clear now. Humanity's true power wasn't something the aliens could see with their advanced technology. It was something they couldn't quantify, a force that lived within every human being, waiting to be awakened. And awakened it would be. The world began to change, not from fear, but from the realization that they weren't powerless. The true strength of humanity lay not in their weapons or technology, but in their unwavering determination to survive, to protect their home, and to prove the Zal-4 wrong. A new sense of purpose began to take hold. It was no longer about submission. It was about resistance. Humanity had the potential to fight back, and they would do so in ways the aliens could never imagine. The awakening had begun. It was a single, unexpected event that would mark the beginning of humanity's resistance in earnest. For weeks, the Zal-4 had been methodically scanning the Earth, extracting resources, and securing their dominance. Their drones patrolled cities, their weapons hovered above in silent menace. It was clear they believed humanity would cower in submission. But something they hadn't accounted for was beginning to stir, a fire of defiance among the people of Earth. In the ruins of a major city, one of the most unlikely groups of humans, a ragtag team of hackers, engineers, and former soldiers, came together. They weren't military leaders or world-renowned strategists. They were ordinary people who had witnessed the Zal-4's brutal oppression firsthand. They had nothing but their wits, their courage, and the remnants of human technology to work with. But they had one other thing: a determination that matched the strength of any army. The team had spent weeks studying the alien drones and reverse engineering their tech. They knew that the Zal-4 relied on their ability to control everything remotely: drones, ships, even the atmospheric shields surrounding their bases. But after months of trials, the team made an unexpected discovery. The alien systems had one flaw: a hidden vulnerability in the frequency modulations that powered their drones. This opening wasn't huge, but it was enough. A small chance to strike back. With a sense of urgency, the group set their plan into motion. They found an abandoned warehouse on the outskirts of the city, an area that, unlike the city center, hadn't been entirely taken over by the Zal-4. Using salvaged alien parts and a makeshift array of human technology, the team began to build a device capable of sending a focused energy pulse that could disrupt the Zal-4's control over their drones. It wasn't pretty, nor was it flawless, but it was humanity's first real strike back. When the device was ready, they set it up in the dead of night and waited, hearts pounding, as they activated it. Nothing happened at first. Then, with a crackle of energy, the device hummed to life. The signal sent out was small, like a tiny ripple in a vast ocean of alien control. But it was enough. Across the city, The drones, previously under the complete control of the Zal-4, began to falter. They twitched, they wavered, and then, one by one, several of them dropped from the sky, crashing into the streets. The explosion of chaos was immediate. The team watched from their hiding place as the alien drones writhed and sputtered, confused by the unexpected disruption. Sirens wailed in the distance as the Zal-4 scrambled to regain control. But it was too late. The signal had already caused enough of a disruption for the humans to gain the upper hand, even if only for a few precious moments. News of the success spread quickly, like wildfire across the globe. It wasn't much, but it was enough to make the Zal-4 stop and reconsider. For the first time, the invaders realized that humanity wasn't going to simply roll over. This small victory ignited something bigger: hope. Across every continent, people rallied. Governments, scientists, and ordinary citizens began collaborating in ways that had never been seen before. The world's leaders were no longer divided by borders. They were united in their determination to defend their home. Humans had begun to adapt, learning from their enemies and using their own ingenuity to turn the tide. The Zal-4 may have underestimated humanity, but they had now discovered a dangerous truth. Humanity had the potential to fight back, and they were no longer willing to be passive victims. The first sign of resistance had been given, and it was only the beginning. The first signs of success had breathed new life into the human spirit. The world, once fractured and paralyzed with fear, began to unite under a singular cause. No longer would humanity cower beneath the shadow of the Zal-4. If anything, the invaders had unwittingly sparked a revolution. People began to understand that victory wasn't just a distant dream. It was possible, and it was within their grasp. In the weeks following the first successful strike, scientists, engineers, and military leaders worked together like never before. Every corner of the Earth became a hive of activity. The intelligence gathered from the disabled drones was passed to every nation's military and tech experts, and humanity began to reverse engineer the alien technology with astonishing speed. The earlier assumption that humans could never match the Zal-4's superior tech was being proven wrong. The more they studied the alien systems, the more they discovered that human ingenuity, along with the lessons learned from the invaders' mistakes, was their greatest asset. One of the most important breakthroughs came from an unassuming group of software engineers in Japan. They realized that the Zal-4's communication network, which had seemed impenetrable at first, was vulnerable to a series of targeted cyberattacks. The aliens relied on a complex interconnection of systems to keep their command structure intact, but that web of control had created a glaring weak point. The engineers had discovered how to create viruses that could infiltrate and disrupt the alien network. It was like finding a single crack in a vast dam. The military now had a real opportunity to strike. Coordinated attacks began to take place all over the world, from the jungles of South America to the deserts of Africa. Small, mobile units, often composed of civilians who had taken up arms in defense of their cities, became the backbone of humanity's defense. These guerrilla forces were nimble, unpredictable, and most importantly, they weren't encumbered by traditional tactics. Their success wasn't just due to their newly developed weapons. It was because they were learning how to fight the way the Zal-4 couldn't anticipate, by thinking like humans. Meanwhile, the largest powers on Earth began consolidating their resources to launch a coordinated strike against the Zal-4's central command. Nations that had once been bitter rivals were now working side by side, united in their singular goal. The long-standing political divisions that had once seemed insurmountable were forgotten. The enemy wasn't human, it was the Zal-4, and all the world's nations, regardless of their past conflicts, were willing to put aside their differences to face this threat. In the skies, humanity's new repurposed fighter jets, fitted with alien technology that they had adapted into weapons, began to launch full-scale attacks. Earth's military, bolstered by this newfound tech, was able to take down several key ships from the Zal-4 fleet. Though these ships were far superior in firepower and armor, The Zalfor had never anticipated the resourcefulness of humans, who used their very limited resources to hit the aliens where it hurt. But the true turning point came when humanity uncovered something even more unexpected. The alien ships had begun to show signs of internal sabotage. Unknown to the Zalfor, some of their own systems were being tampered with by human cyber warfare. It wasn't just the drones that were vulnerable. Even the ship's power cores were being corrupted by the same viruses that had taken down their command networks. The Zalfor's technological superiority was eroding faster than they could manage. In the face of mounting losses and chaos, the Zalfor began to realize that they had underestimated humanity in ways they never imagined. Humans were not just fighting to survive. They were fighting to reclaim their future. Their resilience, creativity, and unity had turned the tide of the war. And now, the invaders had to reckon with the undeniable truth. They had awakened something they couldn't control. The counterattack had begun in earnest, and humanity was no longer just defending their planet. They were taking the fight directly to the heart of the alien empire. As the war raged on, humanity's resolve solidified. The Zalfor's arrogance, their belief that they could easily crush Earth, had proven to be their fatal flaw. The alien invaders had underestimated the true power of human will, creativity, and unity. While the Zalfor had focused on overwhelming strength and technology, humanity's greatest weapon had always been its ability to adapt, to improvise, and to unite when faced with existential threat. The counterattacks were becoming more daring. Human forces, equipped with alien technology and reinforced by guerrilla fighters from every corner of the globe, were no longer retreating or evading. They were advancing. The battles were no longer confined to small skirmishes. Full-scale assaults were being launched. The first major city the Zalfor had taken, Paris, was liberated after a relentless campaign that saw coordinated attacks from multiple factions across the continent. It was a symbolic victory, but it was one that sent shockwaves through the alien ranks. The Zalfor had never considered that humans would take back what had been stolen. They assumed that once their drones and military systems suppressed the humans, the resistance would crumble. But with every fallen city they conquered, humanity grew more resolute. The more the aliens laughed at Earth, the fiercer the human response became. The sight of a flag, the flag of humanity, being raised in Paris after the liberation ignited hope in every nation. It was a symbol that the impossible was becoming reality. However, despite these victories, the war was far from over. The Zalfor still commanded vast fleets of ships and countless drones. They had the firepower, the numbers, and the technology. But what the invaders lacked, and what humanity had in abundance, was the heart to fight, the drive to preserve their home, and the fierce will to defend their future. The Zalfor leadership began to recognize the shift in momentum. They had grown accustomed to treating Earth as a conquest to be won quickly. Now, as their forces found themselves continually pushed back, they became increasingly desperate. The invaders had relied on their overwhelming technological superiority, but the human resistance had learned to exploit their weaknesses. Every battle they fought brought new insights into the vulnerabilities of the alien ships, their power sources, and their command structure. The Zalfor, for the first time, were caught off guard. At the heart of the human effort, a new strategy was being developed, an audacious plan that would put an end to the war. In hidden underground bases and secure military installations, a new generation of soldiers was being trained. They were not just soldiers, they were experts in sabotage, hacking, and unconventional warfare. They had learned how to infiltrate the alien strongholds, how to disable their weapons, and how to turn the tide with small, precise strikes. These soldiers were humanity's last hope, and they were ready. The moment had come. Earth had endured far too much. Every victory, every fallen soldier, every inch of land reclaimed had led to this point. The tipping point had arrived. Humanity had proven that they would not simply survive. They would win. The final push to rid Earth of the Zalfor's oppressive rule was about to begin. It would be their most daring assault yet, an attack that would challenge the very core of the alien empire. And they would fight until the last of the invaders was driven from their planet. The war had come down to this moment. Humanity had endured unimaginable trials, humiliated, ridiculed, and underestimated by the Zalfor at every turn. Yet, with every defeat, they grew stronger. The invaders had thought Earth was an easy conquest, a mere stepping stone to greater power. Now they were locked in a desperate battle for survival, facing a force they could not understand or defeat. The final assault was underway. After months of planning, humanity's unified military coalition had devised a daring plan to strike directly at the heart of the Zalfor Empire. The Resistance had discovered the location of the Zalfor's Central Command ship, a gargantuan vessel that not only controlled the alien fleet, but also served as the nexus of their operations on Earth. If the humans could disable this ship, it would cripple the entire invasion force. The plan was bold, risky, and fraught with peril, but it was the only way to win. As the final assault force prepared for launch, soldiers, pilots, and engineers stood side by side, ready to give everything for the future of humanity. It was a diverse group, citizens from every corner of the Earth, from nations once divided by borders and ideologies. Now they were one unified front, driven by the singular purpose of reclaiming their planet. They were no longer a collection of individuals. They were a global force, a united people determined to end the alien threat. The mission was twofold. First, a full-scale distraction to draw the majority of the Zalfor's forces away from their central command. Second, a covert strike team of elite soldiers and tech specialists who would infiltrate the heart of the enemy ship, plant the virus, and disable its systems. It was a two-pronged approach, relying on speed, stealth, and overwhelming force. In the dead of night, as the Zalfor fleet prepared for what they thought would be another routine patrol, humanity launched the most audacious attack in history. Waves of fighter jets, equipped with alien technology, tore through the skies, engaging the Zalfor ships in a brutal aerial assault. The suddenness and intensity of the attack caught the alien forces off guard. But this wasn't the true objective. It was a diversion. The Zalfor, focused on their incoming threat, failed to notice the small, stealthy human craft slipping through the chaos. The elite strike team, led by Colonel Marcus Tilden, a war hero who had seen more than his fair share of battles, approached the central command ship with precision. Their mission was simple: infiltrate, plant the virus, and escape. The fate of the war rested on their shoulders. As they neared the alien flagship, the team's nerves were taut, but their resolve was unshakable. They had trained for this moment, prepared for every possible scenario. Each member had been selected not only for their expertise, but for their ability to think on their feet, to improvise in the heat of battle. And they would need every ounce of that skill. When they finally breached the command ship's defenses, a surge of adrenaline hit. The inside of the ship was unlike anything they had ever seen. Its corridors were vast, shimmering with alien lights, and the very air felt heavy with the weight of their advanced technology. But there was no time to be in awe. They had a job to do. As the strike team planted the virus into the heart of the ship's core systems, the rest of humanity's forces continued their all-out assault on the remaining Zalfor forces. But as the clock ticked down, something incredible happened. The alien fleet began to falter. Ships lost power. Drones dropped from the sky, and the central command ship started to lose its grip on the battlefield. The virus had worked. The tide was turning. Outside, explosions rocked the skies as humanity's final push began. The Zalfor's control systems were failing. Their once impenetrable technology was now crumbling under the weight of human ingenuity. The battle was reaching its crescendo, the final moments in a war that had defined the future of Earth. Humanity was on the brink of victory. The moment of triumph arrived in the deafening silence of space. The Zalfor's central command ship, once a symbol of their technological superiority, began to tremble as the virus infiltrated its core systems. Across the battlefield, Alien ships flickered and lost power, one by one, until the skies that had once been choked with enemy craft were now clear. The alien fleet, disoriented and collapsing, no longer had the coordination to fight back. On the ground, the tide of the war shifted dramatically. As the alien ships fell from the sky and their drones powered down, humanity's forces surged forward. The coordinated strikes, the countless hours of planning, and the sacrifices of every individual who had fought so fiercely now bore fruit. The Zalthor, once seen as an unstoppable force, were now reeling from the devastating blow humanity had dealt them. Inside the heart of the alien flagship, Colonel Marcus Tilden and his team had just completed their mission. They had planted the virus, sabotaged the central command, and disabled the invaders' ability to regroup. They now raced to escape, weaving through the alien corridors that were beginning to shudder, lights flickering as the command ship descended into chaos. "Let's move. We don't have much time," Tilden barked as they sprinted through the corridors, knowing that every second counted. With the systems collapsing around them, they barely managed to escape the flagship before it began its descent into the atmosphere. In the skies above, the Zalthor's leadership, who had once believed themselves invincible, now faced total collapse. As their central ship lost control, they scrambled to deploy a last-ditch effort, a desperate final strike aimed at Earth's cities. But it was too late. The coordinated human response, fueled by months of preparation and their own ingenuity, intercepted the alien attempt, dismantling their remaining forces piece by piece. The victory was complete. Back on Earth, celebrations erupted as news spread across every continent that the invaders had been defeated. It was a moment of unparalleled triumph, a testament to the power of human resilience, creativity, and unity. The world was alive with hope as people hugged, cried, and cheered in the streets, knowing they had just secured their future. But this victory wasn't just a military one. It was symbolic of humanity's strength, a victory not just over an alien empire, but over their own limitations. The lesson was clear. Humanity had proven that when faced with insurmountable odds, they could come together, adapt, and overcome. In the months that followed, the global community began to rebuild. The remnants of the Zalthor technology, once thought to be far beyond human capability, were now used to advance Earth's scientific understanding. The aliens had brought their most advanced tools to Earth, but in the end, it was human creativity that had turned the tide. Technology that had once seemed alien and unapproachable was now harnessed for the betterment of humankind. More importantly, the war had united the nations of Earth in a way nothing else had. The divisions that had once kept the planet in conflict seemed small and insignificant now. The world had fought together, and in doing so, had forged an unbreakable bond. As the last remnants of the Zalthor forces fled the planet, humanity stood on the precipice of a new era, one that they would shape with their own hands. The lessons learned in the fires of war would guide them, as they looked to the stars, not with fear, but with the confidence that they were no longer just survivors. They were a united force. The dawn of a new era had arrived, and humanity would never be the same.